Sophie Cachia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited for this one.
I am also very excited. I listened to one of your podcasts yesterday, I think it was, and you were talking about being open-minded and non-conformist. I was like, fuck, I've got to speak to this girl. I love the way she thinks. So before we rip into all of those things, can you give the guys a 60 to 90 second spiel on your life and what's got you to where you are now?
Well, I love this podcast even more now because you just said fuck in your opening. So that's brilliant. I'm in the right place. But my name is Sophie Cachia. I'm a 32-year-old mother of two, an 8-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. I'm a business owner and entrepreneur. I started in this sort of online space. I was always a journalism student, right into sports, studied sports journalism, fell pregnant quite young and my life took a shift. And so I organically fell into the social media space through blog writing and utilizing my journalism skills that I wasted a lot of money at uni not using. And then organically through that, I built a really engaged audience, a really loyal audience. And that's sort of how I fell into business, because I thought, I've got this audience here. I'm selling a lot of people's other products. I need to utilize this and yeah, take advantage of it. Not a lot of people want to say that, but that's the truth behind any business, is trying to sell. And so now, yeah, I'm a director and co-founder to Cachia, which is a very successful Australian sleepwear label. I've had a few hiccups with one of my other recently started businesses, Izuru, but that's about to relaunch again. And I work freelance, I suppose, in the media and digital media space.
Good intro. What is it about fuck that makes you feel at home?
I think as a female, owning it, we're grown up from such a young age. I was the youngest of 4 girls. And I often mention this exact situation when I do talks, is that my dad was an AFL coach, an AFL player. So I had a very, blessed, if you're an AFL fan, I had a very privileged childhood and in and out access to things that people could only dream about. But one thing as a young girl I noticed is that all men swore. But growing up in a female household, it was no, girls don't say that. And I remember saying to my dad one time, I was 7 or 8 years of age and I was sleeping under the table at a footy function. And I stood up, I said, Dad, when am I going to be able to swear? And one of his mates, sitting there with his red wine said to me, well, never, you're a girl. And so at sort of that age of 7 or 8, I thought, well, that's not fair. Like, why, just because of my anatomy, can I say a word that you can say? And so I feel like it's something as basic as women shouldn't speak like that, but men can, is something that's just never sat well with me. And something I teach my children now, I have both a boy and a girl, is that we are all equal. Just because you're Bobby's younger sister, doesn't mean you can't do this and that. And swearing is not encouraged in my house, but it's certainly accepted in the right context and the right situation. So my children know that they can't swear at each other, but if Bobby drops a pot on his toe, he can certainly say shit. Because really, at the end of the day, if you break down what is actually, what weight does swearing hold? It doesn't hold anything. It's just a word. And therefore words like fat, idiot, loser, they're the words that are banned in my house, not fuck, shit, asshole, because to me they only have weight if you give them weight. So it's just swearing for me, people still say it to me, oh, potty mouth, oh, that's disgusting, but it's so accepted in a male industry. It just makes no sense to me.
This is a loaded question and intentional, but where else have you potentially felt restricted or drawn into being conformed at different stages of your life?
Sex, absolutely. Sex is the main one. I've never been shy in the sense that, and not annoying, it's great, but I've always owned my sexual nature and I've always been very vocal about it. Now it's like really trendy and popular for females to talk about it. And that's great because we're at a stage where everyone's accepting it. And I follow so many women on Instagram who talk about butt plugs and this and that, and it's brilliant. But definitely growing up, 16-year-olds experimenting and doing all this. If a guy did something, he was cool and he was getting high fives. But if a girl did it, she was a slut. She was a whore. She was giving herself to these guys. And again, I realized young, why is the same action between a guy and a girl celebrated or frowned upon so differently, like completely at contrasting levels. So that's something I've always been really proud about. It still make, I've been on social media now for over a decade, and it still makes people very uncomfortable. I think I used a song in the background of a reel the other day that it had sexual connotations in it, and someone wrote to me, "Oh, what a shame, for such a classy lady, you use such a song." And really, I hadn't given that much thought. I hadn't gone, "Oh yes, I'm going to use this reel because it says suck my dick in it." I used it because I liked the song, but I'm like, that's again that generalization that women shouldn't participate or be so open about those type of behaviors. So you're very vocal about that as humans, we're all innately the same, that we have sex drive. Well, some have sex drive, some don't. And the whole notion that females shouldn't be proud about the pleasure or wanting pleasure is something that just, like, my mind is just blown.
Yeah. How did that process work for you? Because there's a lot of conditioning that comes in that process, and a lot of shaming that can become a byproduct of the indoctrination.
Yeah.
What was that process like for you? Because you sounded pretty, from what I've heard, experimental from a very early age, which is awesome. Was it like internal conflict of like, I want to do this and I want to be free, this free spirit, but yet the conditioning, or did you find that you kind of moved through the conditioning pretty easily and it wasn't a part?
Yeah, so something I get asked quite a lot is like, where did you get this confidence from? And I can't sit here and like say that there was some pivotal moment where I went, this is it. I was born like this. Like I was put on this planet to shake things like this. So from, like I said, challenging men around a football table saying, well, why can you swear like that and I can't? Challenging, like, I don't know how graphic we can be, but
go there.
Yeah, being at a party at 15, 16, wanting to have sex with someone behind the shed, like I was like, well, I'm not doing it to please some guy. I'm doing it because I want to do that. I want to have sex behind a shed, and again, it's the same thing of guys were getting high-fived when they walked back to the party. And then it was like, oh my God, Sophie did this. So I was from a young age, just like exploding those pressures and that structure that had already been put on us. And I feel like I don't intentionally set out to do it. That's just who I am. And I'm really proud of that. I think I gave my mum and dad a bit of a shock because I am the youngest of 4 girls and I'm totally different to my 3 older sisters. I don't believe that we openly discuss sex and stuff now. Like all my sisters are married and we've all had children. So it's very easy to do the maths of what's happened. But it wasn't until sort of I was the one going, when did you do this? Or what does your vagina feel like with this? And they're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But I feel like I've made my sisters feel more comfortable with discussing such normal things now. But yeah, my poor mum, she's still, parts of my book, she's like, I just can't read that because we're just wired so differently. But at the same time, that's what my family love about me. That's what my friends love about me. And I hope that in doing this, I can make a lot of people feel really comfortable. I've always been that friend, always, that the friend comes to when they're really embarrassed about something. And I think that is a sign that I make people feel really comfortable and non-judgmental. So yeah, it's a really nice feeling. It's nice to be able to provide that space for people.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think most people could probably count on one hand how many people they've got in their world that they could really feel safe and not judged in a space.
Yeah.
What are the traits that you embody that you think creates that space? Obviously, you're very open in terms of your dialogue around everything. What are the other traits that you think you've potentially got that create that space for other people?
Yeah, something I've been told a lot in a work capacity is that I'm a really good listener. And I think, and that I can take feedback on really well. And so I think that, again, it's about creating safe spaces for people. I'm a real empath as well. And I think people that don't know me too well see me as this like hard ass boss woman who, tell everyone to get fucked. And yes, there is that side of me. But behind that is this like 80% super soft. I take on people's feelings, I take on their emotions, and it's actually at my detriment because I can get too upset about things or too involved in things emotionally that really have no effect on me. But I think that works well in the sense that no matter someone's actions or behaviors or choices, I can almost find a way to understand why they did that, why they said that. Like if I used to have a fight with a girlfriend at high school or relationship problems or this, I almost find a way of going, yeah, but I can see why they might have thought that because of this. And maybe it was the pressure. So I just think understanding, I think a lot of people these days say, I don't judge, but really, is that true? Because there's a lot of judgment that goes on, a lot. And, that's not to say I'm perfect. I'll never say that I'm perfect. But I can almost find a way to understand a lot of things. And I think that just comes from a place of separating myself from it and going, well, it's not me. Maybe this is why they acted that way. Maybe this is why they felt that way. And there is always a reason. There's always a reason why someone does something.
Yeah. You mentioned at the start and before we started, I guess the piece around the difference between males and females and, the feminist part as well. How's that process been for you in terms of, was it easy to find peace, with males kind of, getting, put on a pedestal for sexual acts while females obviously got slut shamed? Was there a piece of that you had to move through in order to find peace with the masculine? Because as you, have said, and I've seen it firsthand as well, like that feminist can often come with like speaking down to the masculine or an energy that isn't clean.
Yeah.
What was there a process that you had to go through in order to keep your energy clean towards the masculine while really embodying the feminine?
Well, I think it's funny now that I'm the gay one out of my family. We always said there's 4 girls, someone's going to be a lesbian, but I always did have much more masculine traits than my sisters. I have always been one of the boys. I was the one always kicking the footy with the boys. Like I said, my dad coached AFL. I grew up around a very male environment. And so I've always been a lot friendlier with boys. So I think I might have more of an understanding around boys than your everyday female as well. Because like even now, I've got my solid group of girlfriends, but some of my best long-term friendships are all like individual guys from different stages of my life. So yeah, it's something I do battle with. It's an ongoing issue, the sort of fight between, not the fight. See, I don't even like saying that, the fight between men and women, but there are issues. And on one hand, I'm very strong and very passionate about female equality. I'm engaged to a female athlete. I see it. I live it, the inequality that she deals with, that her industry deals with. But on the other side, I think sometimes men can be very misunderstood as well. Men's emotions are not often taken into consideration a lot. Men's mental health is a huge issue. And so I do get torn between going, okay, well, this is who I am. I'm this strong feminist and that, but we touched on it before we pressed record, is that with feminism comes the assumptions that you're a man hater, that you want. Feminism's often confused with us as women. We want to be better than men. It's not. We simply want to be equals, and we can both utilize each other. And that's where I sit, is that no one is better than the other. No one is a better help. No one is worse than the other. As humans, we can all work together. And you know where I learned that the most? On my very short stint on Survivor. Is that when you break down every barrier and you take away every form of what we're used to, we are all humans and we are all trying to survive, and we all actually need each other for different reasons. And it was the most beautiful experience, realizing that, like the rawness of human connection, and take away sexes, the rawness of human connection, and how much we might need someone's strength for something, but we might need someone's nurturing skills for something else. And we might need someone's emotional capacity for something. We might need someone's mental strength for something else. And that's where I find myself sitting straight in the middle, that understanding of both sides.
Well said. When it comes to the connection bit, you obviously went through a very interesting, and I assume quite challenging period in your life where you were married. You'd had 2 kids and then decided that that wasn't for you anymore. What did you need in that period of time, and what has that taught you potentially around one, I know you spoke on another podcast around not feeling like you're in your truth, which I can only assume you probably had a lot of DMs as you went through this process of like, fucking hell, that's me. I'm not living my truth. What did you need? And what was some of the feedback that you got as you made that transition?
Firstly, the most obvious one that comes to mind is I needed more support around me. I didn't need people to understand, because you can't ever expect someone to understand your situation, but I just needed that support. I needed someone to be the friend that I know I would have been in that situation, going, okay, I'm going to remove myself. I have nothing to do with this, but talk to me how you're feeling. And it's taught me that a lot of people will just remove themselves when they're uncomfortable. And they'll think, oh, well, I don't understand it, so I can't, it's too much for me. And I think that is the worst thing you can do to people. People just need to feel like that and support doesn't need to be understanding. Support doesn't need to be, I relate to it. Support just needs to be, okay, I'm here to listen. That's all it needs to be. And it doesn't need to make sense to me, but I'm here. And I think that transition through that time, it's so cliche, and I know it sounds so cliche bullshit, but I really figured out who my people were through that time. And a lot of them were guys. A lot of them were guys, or a lot of them were younger friends that I'd met through footy clubs and stuff, who probably didn't have their vision sort of set so much in their mind, or their expectations so, smothering them as much as probably some of my existing friendships did. The traditional, we married our high school boyfriends and we had babies. And what do you mean you're getting to 30 and you're going to rattle that? You can't do that. Well, yes, I fucking can, because it's my life. I absolutely can. But yeah, my DMs absolutely blew up. And as part of the reason I'm actually writing my second book now. So I've told my story in my first memoir, then there was her, and being so inundated with every type of human, men, women, non-binary, trans, every person writing to me saying, thank you so much for making me feel understood, or thank you. That one line that you wrote there. So now I'm putting together a collection of stories from my followers and from my readers to create sort of that book that I did need when I was going through that period, a book of understanding, a book of no judgment, a book of relatability, or just a sense of norm, that what you're going through at the moment, we go through shit. People go through change, but I think change is great. Change is brilliant.
Love it. What was some of that stuff that came up for you as you're transitioning? From what I remember, it was quite a lengthy period in the end, wasn't it? Really kind of, am I right in saying about 3 years?
Yeah.
Have I got the maths right?
Being on social media, a lot of people thought, when something's posted, oh, well, it's happened then. No, guys, if there's one thing I can say, people on social media also live a very private life that you don't have access to. Like that is possible, but people still struggle to understand that. So a lot of these things were happening. I think we announced our separation in September 2019. And a lot of these things started in 2017, 2018. So, and that was a lot of back and forth between, am I this, am I that? I'm going to try this. No, I'm not. Depression, happiness. Like I experienced everything. But the person I am, the stubborn person I am, I was like, no, I need to explore all of this before I start discussing it, because I need to figure it out for myself. I'm the only one that's going to have the answers. But yeah, a lot of things that came up were just that appreciation for, again, as humans, whether you're male, female, or other gendered, you have the right to explore your mind, your body. And that can be relationship, sexuality, work, travel, families. Like we're not put on this earth to live this straight line life, and I could speak about this for hours, that it's a cliche bullshit line, you get one life. But if you break it down, you actually do. Like my 20s are gone. I never get my 20s back. Like I'm now in my 30s, and then it's my 40s, 50s, and then I'm a grandma, and then I'm dead. So that was like a real big motivation for me, and my ex-husband's as well. He did have a very open mind too, in that we're here to live. So let's just try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does work, great. That open-mindedness that we both had to allow each other to go off and explore. And again, he was brilliant because, you know, when a woman leaves when a guy sort of, I suppose, goes off and gets another girlfriend, it's like, oh, typical. That's what typical men do. But when a woman does it, again, she's slut shamed. Oh, why did she do that? She had the perfect man. She had the roof over her head, because that's all us women want, right? A man to look after us. And I think a lot of it for me was like, no, I can fucking look after myself. And so that message came up a lot too from women, that I don't need to be looked after. I might not always make the right decisions, and I'm unafraid to make mistakes, but I'm going to give it a go anyway.
Was there any part of you that was challenged in the indoctrination of like the meat and three veg lifestyle, the white picket fence, 2.5 kids? Was there a part of you that was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Everyone else seems happy with this white picket fence, Labrador, and 2.5 kids. And I feel like I'm ready to like burst out of this box.
And I won't lie, that pressure still sometimes comes. Right. And that proves how sort of smothered we are with it from such a young age. Like I am so happy in my relationship. My partner's living overseas at the moment, you know, chasing her career goals, and I encourage her to do that. I am flourishing here with my children and my work. I'm in a really content place in my life. And then every now and then something comes in where I go, oh, fuck, it'd be easier if I had the traditional. And then I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Stop. Like we're on school holidays at the moment, for example. So my kids have to go to their dad's. Well, not have to. That's just what we do. They go to their dad's for a week. They go to mine for a week. And it's brilliant. And some people would go, oh, I wish I had a week off from my kids. But then it's hard for me as a mum to be like, okay, this is what I've chosen. They've got to go to their dad's for a week. This would be so much easier if we were together. Not that either of us want that, but it just proves that it's still in our face all the time. It's still thrown at us that this is what you should be doing. This is what life looks like. It's fucking bullshit. But yeah, I won't lie in the sense that it's still, I remember being on a holiday with a girl I was seeing. We had a brilliant casual relationship, and we went up to Noosa for a couple of days for my birthday. And I was really happy being separated, and I was really happy with her and just figuring myself out. And a family walked past, man, woman, little baby, arm over the shoulder. And I started crying. Like, why am I crying? Because a part of my brain was still saying, you should want that. And I was like, but I'm really happy here. I'm really happy where I am in my life. But part of my brain was still going, that's what you are supposed to have. And I'm like, what the hell, Sophie? So yeah, I think times are changing though. Like I'm really proud of how my children are being brought up. And that's not just them. It's my nieces, my nephews, the kids' friends. Like they're growing up with, oh, Bobby's got two mums. Oh, cool. And they don't ask any questions. They just go, oh, awesome. Whether if that was me when I was younger, I'd be like, she's got two mums. What the hell? Because it was, so I do have a lot of hope, and I'm excited for our next generations coming through. We've seen so many advances and changes, and yes, there's still so much to go, but with female role models, different family dynamics, different types of humans, that's becoming so normal now, as it should be. So, but yeah, I won't lie, it's still that pressure definitely still exists. Yes.
With those DMs in that second book that you've got coming out, I assume there's a lot of people who potentially have envy of the quite courageous jump that you had to make, who just couldn't bring themselves to step away from the traditional conformity. What are some of the, obviously there's not going to be any names included, but what are some of the potential stories or recurring themes that you've seen in your DMs that you've highlighted for these potential couples?
Something that's come up that's been really interesting, it's actually taught me more about myself, is a lot of women saying, you know, I've been with my husband or my long-term boyfriend, but there was always something and I wasn't sure what it was. And then they were attracted to women, but then they went back to their husband. They went back and forth until they had the realization that it wasn't necessarily a man or a woman they're attracted to. It was the masculinity that they were attracted to, right? And I'm like, oh, I think that's me, right? Because I love my partner to death, but I think she's super sexy when she's like in her basketball and her runners and her gym gear. And then sometimes she'll go, oh, well, do you want me to be a boy? Like, is that the only reason you like me? And I'm like, absolutely not. But it was actually a learning curve for me. So that's a really prominent theme, that it's not so much the anatomy as such, it's the masculinity or the femininity that people are attracted to. And I think as a society, we are becoming more fluid. But the main thing, the obvious main thing, as you mentioned, is just that pressure. I feel so bad. I should want this. He's really nice. We have everything. We have 3 children. So therefore, you must be pressured into being unhappy for the rest of your life. And a lot of people choose to make that decision and to do that, to live unhappy rather than to live authentically. And it's really sad. It's really sad because there's, you know, and I got it. I had to go through some difficult processes with friends, family members, all of that. Just, why would you do that? You had everything. Well, I didn't, because I didn't feel myself and I wasn't happy. So I didn't have everything.
That hits strong. I actually had this question down to ask you about the masculinity because I was listening to one of your podcasts, and it sounds like from what you said that your early relationships with female, you were really drawn to the more masculine ones. Yeah. And your partner now probably not as much, although you can obviously step into it. How much have you kind of explored masculine, feminine dynamics, and how does that work in the relationship that you've got now?
Yeah, well, it's funny because we both, female relationships are, well, for me, this is my experience, are very unique because, you know, in my previous relationship, man, woman, you know, we had our roles, we had our places, and then you get 2 females and you might both be really strong in one area or both really weak in this area. And so it's often like constantly flowing to try and find where you both fit. And it's not about fitting, but just about complementing each other. So yeah, I've found that it's funny. I speak about Mads and she knows this is not new. When she is dressed in a feminine way, like at our engagement party, for example, she's dolled up. I think she's absolutely stunning. I think she's beautiful. I think she's the prettiest girl in the world. And then when she's in her big t-shirt and her baggy shorts and her runners, I'm like, you're fucking sexy. You're so hot. So it's like, I actually get 2 different girlfriends, 2 different partners there. But there's a stereotype within lesbian or gay women that if you're going to date that, why don't you just date a guy? And when I say that, it's referring to a very butch presenting lesbian, very masculine. And they go, why don't you date a guy? And people don't understand that you can actually just be attracted to that masculinity, not a penis, not a male's emotions, their smell, their scent, their touch. It's the masculine energy that you find attractive. And I've realized that's what I love. So all of my partners, they've sort of fallen into the same field where they're slightly more masculine presenting. Mad's not so much now. She can more switch between both, but more masculine dominating, I suppose. And that's where, again, you take away the anatomy and you go, what do I find appealing in a person? That feeling. And again, I have friends that go the other way. And again, I'm not going to name names, but I have friends that are engaged to males who like to do sexual acts or do things behind closed doors that would not appear to be traditionally masculine at all. And it's beautiful.
Like strap-ons.
Strap-ons, absolutely. Dildos up their bums.
Yeah.
Or, oh God, I was going to say something really graphic then. I'll tone it down a little bit. And it's brilliant because, again, I go back to these people are so safe in who they are that they're able to explore these things. So my partner clearly likes a more feminine side. You know, she likes it. Maybe that's a quirk of hers. Maybe that's a little kink of hers. She likes when her partner presents in more a feminine way. Now, does that mean that their sexualities are, what are they? They're gay? No, they're not. They're just themselves. They just like that energy from that person. And so, yeah, it's so, you know, people still turn their nose at, what do you mean you're just attracted to the person? What do you mean? Because you can be attracted to someone's touch, their smell, their skin, their emotional side, their mentality, their nurturing. It's not, I'm attracted to a penis or a vagina.
Mm.
And I truly believe now, I've come to the realization now, and this is not to say I'm thinking about it, but I'm so open-minded that once upon a time, I never would have dated a trans person. I know so many trans men now who are clearly transitioned from a woman to a man or are in the process that I find so sexy that I'm like, I could absolutely, like, I'm in a state of mind now where I'm like, yeah, absolutely, that's a guy. And that's, but it doesn't, you know, and then people would be like, wait, what do you mean? Are you gay? Are you straight? What are you? What's happening? And it's just, it's about that energy for me. And yeah, some people are attracted to more of a masculine energy. Some people are attracted to more of a feminine energy.
There's a name for it, which is left my mind, potentially pansexual, where you're more, is that the right? Yeah. Where you're more attracted to the energy. Fuck, you must blow some people's minds that are like traditional with life. It must just be so hard for them to comprehend.
I truly believe, I'm so stubborn in my thoughts on this, I truly believe everyone's like this. It's just conditioning that makes us like, we're humans. We are actually not, you know, monogamy is a whole nother thing as well. It's actually not a natural act for humans. That's a society pressure. It's as simple as that. It is what society has told us we are supposed to do. And that's why throughout different relationships, multiple relationships, I've had periods of non-monogamy because it's like, it's not normal. But again, people go, oh my God, how could you do that? Well, who actually made the rule? Like, who wrote the rule for you that, Sharon, you can't want to have a sexual relationship with someone else? You can't possibly be attracted to it. It's not normal. So polygamy is something that's not how we operate currently. But that's not to say that I'm not open-minded to it, because I think monogamy is a whole nother thing of just social conditioning that is just pressured upon us. That's the expectation of, oh God, I could talk about this for ages. Monogamy is the expectation of a happy relationship. How many monogamous couples do you know that are so miserable? Right? Yeah. And the number one reason for divorce is infidelity. So figure that out, because it's not normal.
I am monogamous, but you are speaking of the converted in terms of the conditioning around it. What does that look like? When I was listening to one of your interviews, I came to the conclusion that you weren't necessarily in an open relationship, but you were in an open-minded relationship. Was the conclusion I'd come to. What is that?
You're the first person that said that. I like that, because everyone's like, open relationship. I'm like, no, it wasn't open all the time, just sometimes.
I love it. So what does that look like for you? From when I was listening, you kind of had obviously your different stages you went through with your ex, and I don't know what that dynamic looks like that you're in now, but how does that evolve and change? I assume it's conversation if you're looking to kind of switch it up or mix that dynamic up a bit.
It goes down to anything, open communication. And something I really believe the most important thing in a relationship, more than love, way more than love, is respect. And I think that open communication comes from respect. And so these conversations are actually quite easy to have if both partners are open to communicating, are open to respecting and understanding each other's wants or needs. Not to say it ends up happening, but it can actually be quite simple in, hey, I'm feeling like doing this. Are you? No? Okay, no worries. And it's also removing the ego as well. It's not, hey, I'm thinking we should try this because I'm not attracted to you anymore and I don't want to have sex with you. It's simply, I'm thinking of doing this. I think it could be fun, or it's a life experience. You know, it's like travel. I want to travel to Europe. I want to study overseas. I want to have a threesome. It's a life experience, and it doesn't need to be looked into further than that. It doesn't need to be, again, that's where the ego comes in. It doesn't need to be taken personally, whether a couple, whoever decides to engage in it. But those, so those kind, like I said, those, in all of my relationships except one, I have had fluidity, and that's both, you know, whether it might have been one experience or it might be a regular thing. All of my relationships, bar one, have been able to have those open conversations. And And, you know, well, I'll say it here, you're getting an exclusive. It's something Mads and I have tried once or twice. I don't know if you count the second time. You know, we enjoyed it and it was fun. Is it anything we're rushing to do again? No. But, you know, and that doesn't mean just because you open the door once, doesn't mean you're in an open relationship, and doesn't mean that that's how your relationship dynamic is going to work forever. It's just an experience. It's like, hey, I want to go on a holiday here. Hey, I want to do this for a night. Again, it's taking it back, breaking down all those walls, all that society conditioning. We're humans. We want to try new things. It's as simple as that, and having that mindset. It's
a big part of it, which isn't spoken of often, but I spent a lot of time listening to probably one of the OGs of open relationships when it comes to exposure, Aubrey Marcus and his ex-relationship with Whitney. And one of the big bits that they spoke about often is actually how much work is required from a personal growth point of view. The stories, I remember him talking about vomiting, you know, and the ego piece coming into play. Was there any challenges for you as you stepped in? I know this has been a big part of your life for a long time. Has there been challenges, whether it's ego, whether it's fear? Has there been challenges that you've had to move through in being quite fluid in your relationship status?
Yeah, absolutely. And more recently, so in previous relationships, I've been so confident and so comfortable. But with Mads now, so Mads identifies as bisexual. She's only had girlfriends, but she's had sexual experiences with both genders. And so for me, finding myself jealous for the first time and sort of intimidated is really new to me. And I'm not that person. I don't recall feeling those feelings in previous relationships. So perhaps, you know, that's a sign that, you know, I think Mads is the hottest thing to walk this earth, obviously. And so maybe it's that fear. There's a fear for me of like losing her, or how do I explain it? She's just so hot that I'm like, well, anyone we let in, they're going to like her more than me. And so, yeah, it's new for me to have to work through a different dynamic of feeling insecure, because I don't feel that very often. And especially in my relationships, I haven't felt that. And so one of our only real experience, I was petrified leading up to it, because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to react seeing you with someone, which is probably what the majority of people their fear would be. And so I felt that for the first time. And I was like, wow. Anyway, it happened and it was okay, but it's probably a reason why it hasn't happened again. Mads is very open-minded like myself. She's all about experiences and whatever. And if anything, it's probably me that's like, I just don't know if I'm comfortable at the moment. So it's like, oh my God, am I normal after all? Like, is this what people feel like? Yeah, I'd never felt jealousy until I've been in a relationship with Mads. Yeah.
What's that process look like for you? Because I assume there's plenty of people out there that are fucking bored in their relationship and potentially even want to explore. And as we both said, it's a lot of work to get to a place of peace. What's that soothing process for you like when you realize there's a level of jealousy? What's that dynamic like between you and Mads, and what's the work look like for you as an individual when you're like, oh fuck, like this has come up for me?
Speaking about the experience specifically, we had really open communication about like boundaries, what was okay, what wasn't, making sure you're completely on the same page, making sure you both want the same things, making sure you're comfortable with certain things. Something that we did was that we had to look at each other the whole time, no matter what was happening. It was an eye contact. It was, yes, this might be pleasurable, but you're still like, you know, you're it. And so every couple might come up with something like that makes them just feel a bit more safe. Because I think for me, it was like, I'm fully aware, as you've learnt from this conversation, that I'm all about pleasure and experiences. But I was like, oh God, I don't know. How am I going to be if I see Mads just like laying there, just having the time of her life? And I'm like, oh, should I leave? And so she was the one that was like, let's keep eye contact the whole time. And that way we felt connected throughout the experience. And it was really, really beautiful. But going in with that open discussion and setting those boundaries, like I said, it's respect, it's respecting each other. and making sure everyone is comfortable, no matter if you're doing this, you're doing that, whatever level of experimenting you're going with, you need to completely be on the same page for it to be able to work so smoothly.
Final question, which I think will help a lot of people. When it comes to the amount of people that were potentially in a similar or are in a similar boat to where you used to be when it came to not living your truth and the real challenges of the conditioning and, you know, potentially even the shame of leaving something that is quote unquote perfect. What advice would you give someone who is thinking about stepping away from what is quote unquote perfect into their truth or into a world that you know, but by some people, and I'm sure you potentially, you know, went through this yourself, some people might frown upon leaving what is the right thing.
A lot of people will frown upon it.
Yeah, no doubt. What advice would you give people that are in that boat?
Well, the first thing I say to people when they write to me with a similar sort of question that you just did is that you already know the answer. If you're reaching out to someone on the internet that you don't know, asking for advice, you already know what you want to do. Similar to anyone listening to this right now, if this conversation is churning something inside of you, a curiosity, a yearning for something, it's giving you butterflies, you're excited, again, you already know exactly what you want to do. And I think the piece of advice I can give is it's not to do it alone, because I did need that support when it came, but you're the only one that can figure it out, right? So no one can tell you. This is such a huge life experience and a life change, and it will change so many facets of your life, but you're the only one who can make that decision. So it's all good and well to bounce ideas off people and whatever, but this isn't a case of which color dress should I wear on the weekend or which car's like a better one to drive. This is going to impact your life. And I think that's the one thing that I held clear in my mind. People were going to think I was an idiot for a while. People were going to be really disappointed in me. I was going to lose family members from other sides of the family, which I haven't. But, you know, you have all these fears and these ideas of what might happen. But at the end of the day, it's only your life that's impacted. Everyone will move on in their life. Everyone gets over it. You're not the only person in the world that's going to leave a partner. You really aren't. And something that the idea that this book was sort of born by was everyone has a story, right? So you might share something and, oh, I'm leaving this. Your best friend who pretends she's so happy is probably annoyed at you because she's jealous, because she wants to as well. And your mum who's going, oh my God, you can't do that. It's because she stayed in a miserable marriage for 35 years because she had to do that. So everyone has shit going on. Everyone has a story, and just be proud of yourself that you're going to own your decision and just go with it. And it's also, this was a big feature in my first book, was you can't fear the unknown because you have no idea what's coming. Everyone always thinks about the worst. Everyone fears the unknown because, well, what if this goes wrong? And what if it's fucking brilliant as well? And that's my life now. Yes, it comes with challenges. I co-parent, there's other people involved and kids have got to go here and there. And yes, dynamic and all of that. It's a bit trickier, yes. But I'm so fucking happy in the person that I am. And I'm happy in the mum that, you know, their children get to see living her best life. Children will always be fine. Children will be okay as long as long as there's respect and communication between all parties. I've been very lucky that I have had for a period of time, you know, an understanding and open to communicating ex-partner on the same page. So that's not to say things don't change over time, and you've also got to be okay with that too. You've got to be okay with dynamics changing. Your life isn't going to stay exactly the same. But in here is all that matters. It's only you. Stop thinking about everyone else. And again, if you're listening and you're going, oh shit, yeah, you already know your answer.
Well said. And well done on creating what you've created. As you know, we've said a few times throughout this, the majority of people will stay under and in the box that society has created for them. And yeah, it takes a lot to step away from that. So well done on
Thank
everything
you.
you've
My favorite
done.
thing is when people tell me it's a phase or I'm doing it for attention. I'm like, okay, been separated nearly 5 years, 3 girlfriends down, engaged to a female. I think we're past that. I think we're past the attention on Instagram now.
Yeah.
I think it's me.
I think the other thing for you, and I'm sure you experience this every day, is someone living a life the way that you live it and have lived it becomes very polarizing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Super polarizing. In fact, the conversation that you and I have had, I can't imagine too many more polarizing people, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that is awesome if you can, if these people can see it as awesome, because it brings up, plenty of stuff for them to explore if they choose to, or they just get triggered and unsubscribe. But
that's what I've learned, that there's going to be half people that listen to this and go, I hate this woman. She is repulsive. She is disgusting. I've heard it all. I'm over it. Get over it. Like everything. Because I make them feel uncomfortable, because I do what you're not supposed to do, because I talk about the things you're not supposed to do. And then there's another half going, oh my God, she's everything I needed to hear. And that's the reason I do it. Right? I do it because I know that there's other people out there like me who are just like, this is a breath of fresh air in such a conformed society that we are smothered with so many messages from like my daughter at the moment. Sorry, I'm still rambling. I'm loving it. I have raised her the exact same I've raised my son. So open-minded, girls don't just play with dolls and boys just, you can do whatever you want. And my daughter is the most stereotypical girl I think I've ever come across. She's like, I need to put my lipstick on. I need to carry my handbag. I told her she'll look pretty. I don't look pretty, Mum. I'm not wearing a dress. And I'm like, she is already being smothered by society, because that's not my parenting. That's everything external. And so I can already see that happening to her. There's just so many pressures put on us young women from such a tiny age that we don't even realize it. And I'm just here to go, it doesn't need to be you. You can actually, and that's to men, every human listening to this, you can be whoever you want to be. And I really mean that. These lines get thrown around so carelessly. Not many people actually act on them, but trust me, it's really cool when you do act on it.
Well, I think it also lands better when it comes from someone like you, because you've embodied it. It's easy for some fucking professor to talk shit when he hasn't actually embodied it, but you've done that. So it has a lot more power behind it. So for those that want to find out more about you, follow your work, maybe even get your book, where's the best spot for them to find you?
Yeah, so my first memoir is available on Booktopia. It's called Then There Was Her, and that tells you my story from childhood to marriage to separating to girlfriends to here. And then my Instagram is at Sophie Cachia with an _ underneath, and you can find all of my businesses and upcoming book on there as well.
Soph, that was brilliant.
Thank you so much. That was really cool. I feel like we can be friends. We can go have a drink.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Cheers, Soph.